morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Helga Szabo. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Szeged, Hungary, and I'm very honored to be here, even if just virtually, at the 4th International Conference on Media, Language and Society, Perspectives and Reflections on the Mediatization of Culture, held on the 10th and 11th of January 2022 by the Ministry of Higher Education and Scientific Research, University of Algiers, Faculty of Foreign Languages, Department of English. Today, I'm going to talk about the role of film rating networks in contemporary American film criticism. The aim of this presentation is to explore the possible reasons behind the popularity of the film rating websites IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, and Metacritic. Also, through the brief analysis of the methodology of those websites, this presentation also aims at discussing whether long-form film criticism is ceasing to be important for the moviegoers, or the film rating networks provide a new approach of looking at film reviews without making long-form film criticism negligible. Before I would turn my attention towards the actual discussion of film rating websites, I would like to provide you with a quick overview of the 60s and 70s of American film criticism. The 1960s and 1970s were called the heydays or the golden age of American film criticism by many scholars, including Raymond J. Oberski Jr., who in 2001 said, I quote, "For the first time in American history, they, the film critics, were respected as intellectuals. Millions of moviegoers followed them as priests who passed judgment on movies, directors, and filmmaking styles," end quote. Important film critic names of this period are Roger Ebert, Pauline Kael, or Andrew Sarris. The changes that later led to the rise of the film rating websites can be surged in several paradigm shifts. For example, in the rise of the television culture from the 40s, more precisely with the emergence of the television talk shows, with one particular television talk show, that was the At the Movies, that started by Roger Ebert and Jane Siskel in 1975. The two film critics introduced the thumbs up, thumbs down film rating method for the audience that later became the base of the film rating website's film evaluation process with minor changes. Later on, with the growing popularity of the home video and the VHS tapes from the 80s, the cinematic experience changed for the moviegoers. Also, along with that, the marketing of a film became more and more important for the film studios, even more important than a thoughtful evaluation written by a film critic. Perhaps the biggest change that caused the sudden interest in this film rating website, started with the introduction of the Web 2.0, which was a developed version of the before-now World Wide Web from the early 2000s. The Web 2.2 introduced the so-called user-generated content for the audience. And now, about the popularity of the film rating website. But what can be the reasons behind their immense popularity among the moviegoers and among the audience? Well, first and foremost, they provide quick feedback on films through number-based evaluations and overall summary of films by adding a numeric value to each. They offer both long-form film criticism and short-form reviews and comments. They display information on cinematic productions, and the public and professionals can both contribute in the shaping of the film evaluations, which can also mean that film criticism in contemporary American society can be popularized again. It also means that from a passive role, the audience becomes an active participant in shaping the evaluation, the critical background of these films, which is what Henry Jenkins called in 2006 the participatory culture, which means that rather than talking about media consumers and producers as occupying separate roles, we might now see them as participants who interact with each other. And with this, let me turn towards the film ratings website I'm going to talk about, which is the IMDb, or the Internet Movie Database. IMDb was launched in 1990 by Cole Needham, first under the name Reads That Art, That Movies. The site now has more than 83 million registered users. IMDb categorizes films based on various things. For example, they have a list of the top box office success films in the US, and also the site has a list of the top 250 movies of all time. Of course, it's a subjective list. As for the calculation of the scores IMDb displays on its website, IMDb calculates the average number-based score of each film solely based on the votes of the registered users. The website does not have a separate score based on the reviews of professional film critics. It displays a meta score instead, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. However, it does provide a list of links to the professional critics' reviews, but professionals have no influence in the IMDb scores. They can register to the site and give their votes, but they cannot indicate that they are professional film critics. But IMDb provides only links to professional film reviews. Users can write their reviews in the website comment section. In the two pictures, you can see how IMDb displays its rating and the popularity of the film on each film's profile. The next site is the Rotten Tomatoes that was launched in 1998 by 3 university students. The film evaluating method of Rotten Tomatoes differs from IMDb, since Rotten Tomatoes has a group of curators who collect reviews of knowledge professional film critics from all across the globe and calculate the so-called tomato score out of these reviews. If more than 60% of the reviews are positive, then the film is regarded fresh and has a tomato icon on its profile. If more than 60% of the reviews is regarded negative, then the movie is called rotten and has a green splash icon on its profile. You can see the icons on this slide. Critics can also submit their reviews themselves, and usually they are the ones to indicate their fresh or rotten stance, but Rotten Tomatoes staff also evaluates certain reviews and assigns the fresh or rotten value themselves, but they also allow critics to appeal if they don't agree. Audience votes are indicated separately on the website with either a full popcorn bucket if it's positive or a tipped over popcorn bucket if it's negative. So Rotten Tomatoes separates the audience review from the professional critics reviews and votes. Audience can also write reviews which are indicated separately on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm sorry. In the second picture, you can see how Rotten Tomatoes displays the critics' reviews and how it displays the audience reviews. They write a quick summary based on all of the reviews, and the readers can read them one by one by clicking at the link. For example, read the critic reviews or read the audience reviews. Rotten Tomatoes has the so-called Top Critics program that was established in 2008. The Top Critic designation means that it elevates tomato critics who excel at their craft, are well established and influential. It was originally intended to spotlight critics whose reviews were primarily published at traditional print outlets. However, as media formats evolved, Rotten Tomatoes changed this criteria, and designation was eventually expanded to wide-reaching web magazines and news sites. What is more, from 2020, individual critics can also be a part of the Top Critics program if they have reviewed professionally for a minimum of 5 years and, more importantly, if they have a reasonable amount of social media followers. In other words, Rotten Tomatoes from 2020 let social media self-made critics to be a part of Rotten Tomatoes well-known and very represented Top Critics program, which is unique among the websites I'm talking about today. And the last film rating website I'm going to mention today is Metacritic, that was launched in 2001. Metacritic's selection of reviews is more nuanced than Rotten Tomatoes, as the website only displays film evaluations from a large group of the world's most respected critics. They assign scores to their reviews and apply the so-called weighted average to summarize the range of their opinions, either mathematically from the mark given or what the website decides subjectively from the review. Social media critics cannot be a part of the selecting process. The result is a single number, which is called the Metascore. The Metascore does not include any votes or comments for the registered users of the website. About the weighted average system, Metacritic assigns more importance to some critics and publications than others based on their quality and overall stature. That is called the weighted average. By giving more weight to certain critics, it ensures that the score of a film receives is more heavily influenced by critics who have been in the industry longer or who are regarded more highly in the industry. However, Metacritic has said that it will not reveal the relative weight assigned to each reviewer. Metacritic also breaks down the average scores into 3 categories, unlike Rotten Tomatoes. You can see it in the second picture. There is red, which is negative, yellow, which is mixed, and green, which is positive. Also, there are small, short explanations what certain scores mean. For example, overwhelming dislike is from 0 to 19, or universal acclaim is from 81 to 100. Also, the site converts reviews in all formats into a 100-point equivalent scale. They also come up with a score for any of their critics that don't use a scoring system. If a critic uses, for example, a 0 to 10 scale, their grade is simply multiplied. Their grade is simply multiplied by 10 by Metacritic. Otherwise, the website has two ways of converting grades into numbers. There is the 4-star scale and ladder grades. You can see the method of the 4-star scale on the first picture of this slide. Also, registered users can write reviews and convert their evaluation into scores. It is separated from the meta score. Users can then vote from a 1 to 10 scale. Metacritic features the user reviews next to critic reviews, which is a great opportunity for the audience or for the readers to compare the reviews of professionals to the reviews of registered users. So in conclusion, if I had to mention the drawbacks of each film rating website I talked about today, these would be the following. In the case of IMDb, since every registered user is allowed to vote, professional vote is not separated from the voice of the public. Therefore, the score is written an idea of what the general public thinks and not a thoughtful analysis. What is more, the phenomenon of a biased audience can be an issue on IMDb, since users can easily boost up a film with a 10 or drag it down with a 0. Therefore, the outcome can be a sudden gut reaction instead of a thoughtful evaluation. In this context, the scores on IMDb are more of indicators of the popularity of a film than the actual cinematic quality of it that can be deceiving. As for Rotten Tomatoes, once converted into percentages, the audience cannot see how many percentage each film critic gave to the films. Only the tomato vs plus icons are displayed next to each professional film review. Therefore, the system breaks down the in-depth opinions of professionals into a yes or no score that simplifies film criticism. This is what Jake Paul in 2015 called dangerous and pretty scary, since this new technique, according to him, of providing a quick review on a film might erase the previously known sentence-based film criticism. And finally, Metacritic's method can be called the most nuanced. It does show in a more detailed way what the professional scores were individually, although the website refuses to tell based on what it uses its weighted average system. What is more, the site decides the scores subjectively from a qualitative review, and they convert all different forms of ratings into a single number out of 100. But it's really hard to convert different rating formats onto different scales. They do not easily transfer into different scales. So for example, if a film critic gives 3 stars out of 4, that does not automatically can be converted into a 75% out of 100. So in conclusion, the illusion of promoting long-form film criticism is an issue or can be an issue on this website, since the numeric scores can easily carry the audience's attention away from the long-form reviews, or the long-form reviews are presented on the website. Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic do rely on the voice of professionals when evaluating movies. However, their ratings are not unified. The two websites use different rating methods that can cause different outcomes when converting professionals' reviews into scores. Therefore, the same review written by the same critic can have different final score on Metacritic and on Rotten Tomatoes. Number-based evaluations, therefore, can turn the review of a film superficial, because since it is only a summary of hundreds of critics' reviews and opinions. Also, the freedom of writing a review can cause ill-informed film evaluations. The freedom of voting can result in deceiving scores and can cause the emergence of a biased audience. Still, I argue that film rating websites would erase long-form film criticism from the collective mind of the masses, because it is a matter of preference whether the audience reads the long-form reviews of professionals or are satisfied with the numeric scores. In other words, for now, these websites provide both the long-form and short-form or number-based scores for us, the moviegoers. It is only upon us whether we want to read or we would like to read the long form, or we are satisfied with the short numeric feedbacks or the feedbacks of the registered users. Here are my references. And I would like to thank you for your kind attention.